Now, we can sit here all day and debate which rivalry is the best overall in college football, whether you believe it's, the game, Michigan, Ohio State, the Iron Bowl, Auburn, Alabama, Army, Navy, South Carolina, Clemson. I can go down the list. But there's one category that goes into that debate that I believe I have a logical and rational explanation on why it is the most vitriolic and filled with the most hate. And that's the Iron Bowl. And it's for this reason. And I know the Toledo War fought between Michigan and Ohio over the Toledo territory was a big deal back in the 1700s. We all remember how big of a deal it was. But at the end of the day, with Michigan and Ohio State, it's one thing to get in a fight with your neighbor. You go back to your house, they go back to their house. It's another thing, like it is in the Iron Bowl, to get in a fight with your brother. You don't get to go to separate houses. Not only do you go to the same house, in most cases, you go to the same room. You can't escape it. You go to church with these people. You go to work with these people. You go to school with these people. You are literally surrounded by it 24/7, and there's 364 days of bragging rights that you get between Auburn and Alabama in one state, in one area. Now, within hate, there's also respect. You don't see fights pregame in Auburn, Alabama. Why? Most of these guys grew up playing against each other. They know each other. They were brothers. Hell, some of them were even on the same team. And I know you see that in other rivalries from teams that are in different states, but you see it more from the in-state rivalries. And at the end of the day, it's one thing to fight your neighbor. It's another to fight your brother. And that's why the Iron Bowl, to me, is the most hate-filled rivalry. David Cone.
Yeah, who in your face, David?
Yeah, David.
It sucks. Game sucks, dude.
David, you suck, David. Look, there's a lot of the implications from Michigan, Ohio State have been way higher lately than they have been in Auburn, Alabama. And there's a lot of different, caveats or areas that make the greatest rivalry. We can have that debate. I still think it's the Iron Bowl. You're going to think it's the game. But when it comes down to hate, pure hate, I know one school got upset that a Cam Newton jersey was put on a statue and a guy went and almost poisoned the water supply of the other city, and he celebrated.
They put that scam
on social media still. It just, to me, it's the greatest rivalry in sports. Obviously, I'm biased. I grew up in it.
I love that we're even talking about it because it means it's that week. I've always found the thought experiment of, what type of rivalry is harsher? The one where you share like a common, district with someone, whether it be a state or in-city rivalry, or when you draw a line in the sand. See, to me, when you're talking about brother and you have to be around your brother and you have to go to the same house with them and share the same house, at the end of the day, that's still your brother, though. And you can hate them and fight with them more than your neighbor, but you still love your brother. He's sitting right there. Look at him. Tell him how much you love him. Your neighbor, though, there's no level of hatred that is deep enough that you could feel for your neighbor because you draw that line in the sand and you say, hey, that's your property, this is my property, and we're never gonna get over it.
But you can't escape it, though. You can be like, guess what? I'm just not talking to that neighbor anymore. I'm not going down there. Guess what? I wake up and walk out of I wake up, oh no, I'm in a bunk bed. Guess who's above me? The person I hate.
Or I meant Mike Dick and not Dick Buckus. But it's Mike Dick next door and kicking and screaming.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we did the live stream from your neighbor's house.
That is my neighbor, Brandon O'Brien. Here's all I'll say, though. I'm just really glad that finally that the Michigan-Ohio rivalry has returned to national prominence in a way that it has implications for the postseason. Because when you and I met, and we've been talking about this for years, that's why we're having fun right now. I think there's still videos of us online having these arguments when we first met. But look, when we met, the Buckeyes had won 8 straight over the Wolverines. And then what's even worse than losing to me is when Michigan didn't even go play the game in the COVID year. Now, look, it was a crazy time for all of us. Everyone was nervous about this thing. The whole world was changing right before our eyes. Football took a back seat for a lot of people. But to me, you figure out a way to play that game, right? Because so much of what makes a great rivalry is the historicity of it. You have to have the traditional elements of it. Then also, it's great when both teams are competitive, at least every now and then. Hey, everyone, make sure you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code CRANE, that's C-R-A-I-N. New customers can bet $5 on the NFL Thanksgiving action to score $150 instantly in bonus bets, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code CRANE, that's C-R-A-I-N. The crown is yours. So my question to you is, if this thing like slides off the rail in the Iron Bowl and Nick Saban's able to win the last 4 or 5, right, as he sunsets into retirement, and the Michigan-Ohio game continues to be this top 5 matchup, which we've seen for the last 3 years, like how much does the arc need to continue for like the rivalry to change?
Well, I think you make the point when you're talking about Michigan-Ohio State that you can't judge a rivalry by just a decade when it goes back this long. I go back and I tell people this. You know, I grew up when Auburn beat Alabama 6 times in a row. It was like fear the thumb. So it's all cyclical, right? Like it's, you know, you have, it's funny, Nick Saban takes over at Alabama, loses to La Monroe, and then starts this dynastical run that we've seen at Alabama. So if, you know, Auburn were to drop 3, 4, 5 in a row, something like that, obviously you panic, somebody's getting fired, but you know eventually it's going to come back around. But, you know, looking at this year's matchup, this Hugh Freeze team, this is going to be the biggest talent deficit that he faces in the Iron Bowl going up against Nick Saban or whoever's thereafter, because it is year one. But there's still the craziness of Jordan Hare. There's still 18 to 22-year-olds. You still have some inexperienced guys that are going to be playing in the game. Not that we're on the sidelines during the game, but actually playing in the game for Alabama and obviously Auburn. And, I mean, that 14.5 number is a really big number. Auburn's going to have to catch some breaks. Alabama, you've seen it, I think it always starts and stops with stopping the run, if that makes sense. There's been points through the year where Alabama's run game has been stopped. And Jalen Milroe, even in predictable pass downs, has been able to either scramble his way or get outside the pocket or find somebody down the field. If you're Auburn, you have got to get them in predictable passing downs. Third and 6 and above, 3rd and 5 and above in some situations. And you have to somehow find a way to mix it up enough to keep Jalen Milroe from killing you on the ground, because now this offense is tailored around what Jalen Milroe does best. They will get him on the move. He will take off. There will be quarterback design runs. They're not afraid to run quarterback draw. He's not going to hang in the pocket like he did the first half of the year and let less talented athletes be able to bring him down because the space and the gaps are collapsing. But I don't think Auburn needs to come out and run 85,000 trick plays, right? You need to have your motions. You need to have the quarterback run game. You can have some trick plays, but the more you do that, it's almost like blitzing. You risk a disaster happening, and you have to have a feel of the game, right? You may see a fake punt. You may see a surprise onside kick. But Auburn's goal should be to be able to be close enough in the fourth quarter to have an opportunity. But I just feel like, Blaine, when you look at this talent gap, even if everything goes right for Auburn, it's still going to be tough. What wide receiver from Auburn is going to make a play against these Alabama DBs? Which Peyton Thorne's going to show up? Is Auburn going to be able to run the ball against a really talented front seven? There's just a lot of things that have to go right in this game.
I have some eligibility left. If I have to strap up Saturday, I will. I'm more of a possession guy myself. I'm not a blazing 40 guy, but if you throw it my way, there's probably a 65% chance I'll catch it. The good thing that the Auburn can do in this game is somehow find a way to get in the red zone. I know you played against a New Mexico State team where you didn't one time, but Saturday can be a little different. I think Jarquez Hunter can have a big day. I really do. I think if anything, you need to work backwards a little bit. If you're Hugh Freeze, you have to do the opposite, what people think are predictable downs. You just can't run it on first down 80% of the time and think you're going to end up in the 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 5. I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like Peyton Thorne's going to have his best game of his career. I really do. I think you need to live in the motion. You brought that up from the Georgia game. You move as many pieces pre-snap to give all the help Peyton Thorne can get. I think you live in the screen game on offense. I think on defense, you're not going to get to Jalen Milroe. All right? You're just not. All right? And even if you get there, I don't think you can get him down. I would rather you just stay gap correct when you rush the passer. Do not rush past the passer and make Jalen not. You notice Jalen's been throwing the ball well, but he's had mostly open receivers down the field throwing the ball. Make Jalen Milroe hit tight passes, tight window passes, right? Maybe you can get a D lineman to tip the ball. You got to win the turnover battle. You got to win the special teams battle. You got to find out where they're eating pregame too. All right, find out what they're eating pregame. All right, maybe slip something in there. Maybe get half of them out. We'll see. Prayers. Well, we'll see how.
Well, I think defensively, you're just gonna have to give Jalen Milroe a whole buffet. You can't just give him one thing. You can't just sit there and pressure him the whole game, or he's gonna kill you. You can't rush 3 the whole game, or he's gonna kill you. You got to show things in similar looks and bring it. You got to show it and bluff it. You've got to continue to mix it up to try and confuse him, because he has shown the ability, I guess you'd say, to try and force a ball in there or float one over the middle. Auburn's been pretty opportunistic defensively when it comes to turnovers. You're gonna need a couple of those and probably a big special teams play. But we want to know what you think. What does Alabama need to do? What does Auburn need to do? We're going to open the phone lines up here at 7:15 a.m. Central.
One more thing here, too.
a.m. Eastern.
I
Go ahead.
mentally moved on to Georgia because I have the college football playoff ranking in front of me. But one thing I said yesterday, you can't overrush Milroe either.
Can't do
it. That's one of the biggest things, because like what Blaine's saying, if you're not going to get to Jalen Milroe, you at least can't overrush him to open up those lanes. Now, I don't know if that equals spying more often than you usually would, or if you're just, peeling back from the defensive end perspective. But one way or another, you just can't let him run through open gaps when that first read's not there.
You can't let him escape through the middle of the pocket. You can't. You have to force him to the edge, because at least you can get some chase. And like that's when mistakes happen. Maybe you try to force the ball, throw him behind your body across field. Like, you just can't. If he escapes through the pocket, you're in trouble.
Well, and if you do bring pressure and you're able to get to him, you have got to get him to the ground. You cannot miss a tackle in the pocket, let him shake it against a blitz when everybody else is in man, and then all of a sudden he's gone down the field, because Jalen Milroe scored from 80 out. Like, he's not a guy that's just going to rumble for 15. KJ Jefferson, rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, big guy. He's going to take off and go score. We've seen it multiple times. Everybody on YouTube, appreciate you guys stopping by. Do us a favor if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button on any videos, and turn that notification bell on so you know when we drop content.